Well, thanks for joining us today. Really excited. We have Mr. Mike Denman
What's
on the
up?
show.
Yeah.
I guess we can call it a show. And if you missed the last episode where Patricia Berman and Mike together, they're STR, short-term rental gurus, and they have a great backstory. But we have Mr. Mike today is going to talk to us about his marketing company that he runs and all the cool stuff he has cooking. He has a lot of irons in the fire. And I'm going to let you take it away. And
Sure,
now that
yeah.
I've introduced you, and if you could just tell us a little bit about your backstory and your story and how in the world you got into marketing short-term rental property.
Oh yeah, well, I've got a very different backstory that most people do. My background is in film. I ended up wanting to make TV commercials. So I went to film school after going to like marketing focused college for a while, and I kind of switched. I've gone to like 3 colleges in my career, so it was kind of like a whole jump around the board, and I ended up with a film degree. But I ended up working in commercials, and I did a lot of video game marketing. And so like my bread and butter for a long time, for the past decade, has been marketing video games and helping video game companies create sizzle reels and get funding for more production and all sorts of back end stuff that's really crazy. I get to know about things before they actually come out, like a few years before. And so that's kind of a cool thing, but it's also like, I can't talk about it. So that's a crazy thing. I've worked with Peter Jackson, and I've worked with like all the Lord of the Rings video games, Shadow of Mordor. There's lots of things I've done. So it's kind of crazy. And then when I left Warner Brothers, I ended up starting my own marketing agency, because I was like, why am I making these things and not getting all the pay? I'm going to do this whole thing like a business. That way I can make it all work for myself.
For our listeners, that just to slow you down for 1 minute,
Yeah.
I think we missed something that was super huge. Well, some of us LOTR fans. For those of you that missed that, he just said he worked with, what's his name again? I don't know. Who
Peter
is this guy?
Jackson? Yeah.
I've never heard of him. Peter Jackson on Lord of the Rings.
I would make the videos that would explain video games that we were working on at like the Monolith Productions or different kind of studios for Peter to look at and review and decide whether or not he wanted to be involved with projects. They were usually too violent for him and too outside of his purview of what he wanted to have happen, but they still made the games, and it was still a cool experience. And we made like Game of the Year in 2014, and that was when I decided that I was like, I had 3 Lord of the Rings games under my belt at that time. I finally made Middle Earth cool by making a game focused in Mordor and really helping them market that. It was a cool experience, but I learned so much at the top doing like really big budget marketing campaigns, ad buys, and all sorts of crazy stuff, working with talent, social media influencers, all these different things that I knew were going to be really helpful for really everybody, especially if they wanted to get big, and they didn't have to have like Warner Brothers kind of money. And so when I really started my own businesses, I was like, okay, I think I can bring these high scale things down to a smaller scale, but be still profitable and effective for people. And fast forward to like, going through right before COVID started, I actually was leaving another ad agency that I had helped create with a friend of mine who was running an SEO agency. We got his company to a spot where he was able to get it acquired pretty profitably. And then I was like, all right, I need to start something new. And then immediately after that, like a month later, COVID happened. So I was like, well, I'm not networked the way I was like planning on networking. This is going to be kind of strange. And so over the course of time, I've pivoted a few times. I've done e-learning courses. I've done all sorts of advertising. I've always done real estate advertising. I guess since I started my own business, it was one of those things I kind of fell into in 2015. I did a lot of mortgage stuff. That's where I met you, Bob. And
I remember, yeah. Since I've known you, you've been just amazing talent.
Yeah, it's been fun. And so like I think when I came into the real estate scene, I was like, oh man, this is cool, because people are actually like getting homes, and I'm helping them with understanding like some of the programs out there that they can get it to. And one of the things Patricia and I were talking about is like, what is the biggest thing with people nowadays is like they just don't know some of the available options to even get like different loan types or different ways you can do things. Like one of the long-term rentals we have in Iowa, we built in rehab costs and remodeling costs into the loan. to be able to make it so that way we could afford to remodel a place that needed it without having to spend our actual hard cash on getting that done. It was something we got reimbursed with through
Yeah.
the loan. So there's
Great
all these
loans and
different things.
fix-ups.
Yeah, and it's like you don't really have a knowledge of it unless someone else tells you. And I think it's like that whole like, you know, sharing of information thing. I'm a huge fan of sharing information. It's like I feel like if we share enough information, it's going to help other people get what they want, and we will inherently get what we want through the process. And that's something
Exactly.
we've done
Love
as
that.
we've gone into the short-term rental thing, which if you saw the last episode, you'll hear a little bit about Patricia's decisions as to why she moved from long-term rentals in Colorado to some outstate short-term rentals, and then the whole book by Avery Carl, the short-term rental, long-term wealth, and how that influenced her there, and also listen to Bigger Pockets in general. I'm not necessarily a super big fan of the real estate podcasts. I don't really dive into them too much. I'm more of a let's talk to realtors and find out what they're doing and how they're actually getting business and what kind of marketing they're doing or how they're reaching clients or where they're getting leads. And like, I'm always interested in that kind of stuff.
Well, it's a good point. You made me think of it on the sharing of information, like any town, like anyone listening to this, like you can go to any town in the world, any city or any state here in the nation, in the United States, find a realtor.
Yeah.
They'll share you they have too much information. It almost
I
drives
love
you,
it.
your head will explode
They do.
because there's just too much stuff where generally most consumers don't really, or investors even don't really need to know. But you could call any realtor in any town. I'm sure they'd be happy to get you over like too much information in a heartbeat. And
Right.
they're just
Actually,
there to do that, you know.
I reach out to you to find out which realtor to talk to in whatever town I'm going to, because I know that you're.
That'd be great. Would love to help there. Yeah, we love helping to do that as well.
Yeah.
Actually,
I love the sharing of information aspect. Yeah, so move on. Sorry to slow you down.
I want to take another sidebar real quick. So something that people might not know about Bob. So Bob is one of the most highly advanced technical surveyors of everything to do with real estate technology innovations out there. And so Bob will try apps, try different website services, dive into all those data centric pieces to figure out what's really happening in real estate. So I rely on Bob specifically for what's new and what's innovative in the real estate game. And it's been something that I know that we've done a lot of brain sharing over the years, and it's been super helpful. So I just love, love all that you end up doing, man. It's great.
We love data. Tech and data nerds are the fun. Like some of us are like at heart tech and data nerds, maybe disguised as whatever things we're doing.
Right. I mean, I love data. Data makes every decision that I end up doing. And I usually start with some sort of like, I don't know what's going to work. I don't know what's going to happen. When I spaghetti test a bunch of stuff and I end up finding some things that stick and some things that really resonate with people.
Yeah.
But I use data to determine what resonates. Actually, like one of the things that I know I'm skipping ahead in some things, but I wanted to talk about why I started working in short-term rental advertising. And so when Patricia started the short-term rental journey that we've been on, I think in January 2022, we closed on like 2 properties a few days after each other, and it was nuts, right?
And it, obviously we took roughly $300,000 in appreciation and we reallocated it, but we purchased like $1.5 million plus in properties, which means we had mortgages that were looming large on us. We were definitely leveraging quite a bit. And it can be scary. So when we launched in mid-February for our beach house and we got a booking, but of course I wasn't seeing like a whole lot of bookings roll in. Obviously it's not it wasn't the busy season for that area, but it was nerve-wracking because we had a pretty big mortgage on that property. So I said to Mike, like, we need more bookings. Like, oh my God, I want to make sure we cover our mortgage. And at the very least, obviously we're there to make a profit and we're not there to break even. So.
And so she was doubting herself. She was like, is this the right decision?
Oh my goodness,
I just invested all this money. And so I'm like, don't worry, it's all good. I'll just run some ads. And she's like, don't tell me not to worry. It was really like, I mean, I was like, hey, really, I was nonchalant about it.
I was like, what do you mean not worry? We have a huge mortgage on this property.
just kind of like one of those things. But I mean, I've been doing advertising for real estate for so long that I was like, well, I know if I have an open house for a client of mine and they need to have people going to it, or if I've got a property that's just gone out, they need to make sure eyes are on it, especially like a really expensive property. You have to have a lot of eyes on it so that way people who can afford it can really see it. So I was like, oh, I'll just run some advertising. I'll make like a Facebook page. I'll make an Instagram page. I'll pay for some ads here. I'll pay for some ads here, and I'll kind of see which ones have better success.
The best part is that it worked, and we got booked up like crazy.
That's amazing.
And
Well, there's probably not many people do it. You're kind of ahead of the curve on that, because I've not seen anyone in my little sphere of like, oh my gosh, I market short-term, rentals, because people are like, I just buy it, I put it somewhere, and it gets, people. I think a lot of those days are going away where you really have to hire a professional like yourself and really dig in and get the marketing power behind you.
Yeah, I think, and I'll jump in here, because if you purchased any other business, and if you treat your short-term rental like a business, you should have a marketing budget. I mean, if you're purchasing a business, you need to have a marketing budget, because look, the fact is that we're talking about the law of averages, where you get more eyes on the property, it's more likely to get more bookings. And I wouldn't rely on the Airbnb or the Vrbo site to necessarily or whatever you're listed on to promote you in a way. I mean, they do promote in some ways, but you have to be proactive in promoting your property, because you know that you want to give guests the best experience, and you got to take some of that into your own hands. And marketing is definitely, it's been amazing to see the results. Like Mike he'd turn on the ads, and then we'd get bookings, and it'd be like, oh my God, it's working.
So I just turned the ads on this week too, and Patricia's like, we're not getting bookings. And I was like, well, it's okay, because actually our statistics go, we have on average people booking 31 days out from when their vacation is. And currently 31 days from now, we're still booked solid. So we don't have bookings coming in flowing, because we're solidly booked. We have 2 or 3 days in July.
So well.
Yeah, we have 2 or 3 days left in July that are not actually filled. And that's something that I think that it'll happen over time, but I'm not so worried about it. And it's funny, because like I keep not being really worried about it. She's like, we need to get bookings. Our August is looking slim, and the half it's on the last portion. I'm like, well, it's gonna be fine. And it's
you're like, hold on a minute. Let me go into my laboratory. I'll get you.
I know, right?
I know. So he's like a mad scientist.
I'll be right back. Yeah.
The cool thing is I set up a bunch of like ads in the first place. Like I guess it was like March 1st, I started running ads. I put up 10 images and a bunch of different things I thought people might click on, like come to Crystal Beach. I have no idea what I was putting, but I basically just put a bunch of different things to then see what people were interested in clicking on. The cool thing about like Facebook ads is you can set it up so where it algorithmically uses all of the elements you put in there and arranges them in whatever kind of configuration, so that way they can see which ones get more people clicking on them. And then by that process, it eliminates some of the photos that are not really useful and some of the pieces of text that are not helpful. And then it really outshines some of the places like, well, these photos are your winning photos. There's thousands of people clicking on these, and then no one clicks on the interior photos of your bedrooms. No one gives a hoot about that.
That's
stuff.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, actually, I found this part super interesting as from the host standpoint, right? Like I'm not a marketing person, but the thing that I thought was helpful was like, oh wow, that's our most liked photo.
I didn't like it.
That's like, oh wow, you'll find some surprises, and then like also the most liked text variations of like, okay, so we found out that like family friendly was a huge sell for our place, which was great, because it also gave us, or at least me, the ability to tailor our listing itself in the listing, with the putting the photos that were most liked up front, using text in the description, and the title that was more clicked on or had higher click-through rates. So
it's cool. You can adapt it.
It's helpful. The information that you get, even if the ad run is, even if you don't feel like it's super successful, it's still giving you information and allowing you to then what Mike does is he tailors his
the next ads. And
Yeah.
actually, it's like what I end up doing is also like I do a large geographic area at first, and then I find out which cities have the most clicks, and then I focus
Yeah.
on those cities, and then I spend more of the budget with the people who are actually clicking away the book. Like for a time there, it was Dallas for our Crystal Beach place. It was the most. And then for the other time, it's Houston. So it's like it's kind of like this interesting thing. Then for a little while, it's like Austin. But the really cool thing is there's so much that any ad run gives me. Like I'll spend $10 a day or something like that on ads. And if I run it for 10 days, which for Facebook's algorithm to really have like the most appropriate time to spool and actually deliver ads to enough people to give a good sample, it's like 10 days you need. And so you spend $100, you have essentially like a list of the cities that people are booking your place or clicking your interest in your place. You have the pieces of images that they really like, and then the pieces of text that they really like. And then from there, you make iterations on them, try different areas, try different variations. I really like using our reviews now. Actually, that's my favorite piece of text to add. So I'll take a review that someone left us, which are, so far we have like 18 5-star reviews on Airbnb.
10 stars for the towels.
Yeah, 10 stars. I mean, like,
towel story.
Towels would be great. But like we had one bad review, and it was a lady who was like, she booked the place during Jeep weekend, which is apparently this epic party on the beach that we thought that she wanted to be involved in, because that's why she paid the high rates for those weekend days.
Yeah.
Apparently not. She wanted to hear the sound of the waves. And I was like, I feel really bad for this lady. She chose a really bad time to go and then told us after she had already left, so we couldn't even address things with her. I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's like one of those things that people are going to judge your property based on the location, the experience they have in general, and all those little factors. But when we use people's reviews that showcase what it is with some of the photos or a video walkthrough, people are actually saying and seeing what other people are talking about. And so it's been one of the most successful performing ad campaigns is just using the reviews. And so I've been running a lot of people's ads for their short-term rentals, and I've been like going through their reviews, and so far it's been gangbusters across the board. And it's like I have a little bit of a system that I've created with this that I put into a book, and I made a walkthrough video on YouTube, and I have all these little things I'm just trying to put out there because it's so imperative, because everything changes with how systems work and how the internet works in general. I've worked in .coms for a long time. I've worked in internet marketing for over 11, 12 years. It's crazy. You have to be able to adapt with stuff. And relying on, like Patricia said, relying on those platforms to be all that you're using to have people find your property and book it means that all the other people who are not on those websites don't even know to look for it and be aware of it. And now I'm like,
sometimes people need to be reminded that they need a vacation.
There's 24 million people on Facebook in America who love vacation homes or have interacted with and liked vacation properties. So ultimately, there's 24 million people who are interested in taking a vacation and being exposed to this stuff too. And so
your ad, you brought up a good point there. If they're not actively looking on whatever the other sites are, Airbnb or VRBO, you may have inspired them to go take a vacation. And they maybe that alone, you caught them ahead of the curve, ahead of that end-to-end, sales funnel, whatever you want to call it. And maybe they weren't even thinking about it, but they're like, you know what? I need a vacation. This is the place. Look at that beautiful view.
Power.
Whatever. I'm going, I'm booking it.
Through a lot of the ad environments, you can distribute ads to like websites and more than just Facebook. Meta has a large network for it. So I've been using it because a lot of the demographic who rent from us, like the 35 and up crowd, even though you cannot isolate like 18 to 65 into any kind of age demographics legally, you can still count on people who are in the 35 up, and it's usually women who end up clicking on the ads. And actually, this is what I found across the board with most people's advertising, is all of these, 80% of them are usually the matriarch of the family, I think, where they're a mom, they're kind of gathering the family together, they're finding the place, they're figuring out what the actual vacation is going to be for that summer.
I know, I do it in our family.
So it's like, it's kind of like the demographic who actually is clicking on those things. seems like it's it's kind of on point. I actually met a lady who she only advertises to women in the state that she's trying to advertise into. I was like, can you do that? I was like, I didn't want to get my ads like deleted or rejected by discriminating and leaving the men out of it. But I have enough men clicking on it too that I'm like, it's totally worth it for me to have these things working in simpatico. But yeah, I think that like all the short-term rental bringing eyes to it, brings more bookings to it. It's a law of averages. And so when we have a lot of eyes viewing it, like our wish list numbers go up, our views go up, our bookings go up. There's all these things that increase.
And actually what I would mention here is like when you have increased, one of Airbnb and Vrbo's algorithmic things is that if you have more people going to your listing and adding it as a wish list item, that you will rise up in their own search results as well. So that's another way of getting more people to your listing.
And I think a lot of the cool things that I've been able to experience is even when people don't book with us, they're liking and saving, and they could book with us later. And so even though there's not necessarily a direct booking related to it, and sometimes it's hard to correlate when a booking is associated to the advertising, I can tell where they're booking from, and it's usually where I'm advertising. I can tell that they're interested in the property because they've liked my Facebook page, and I see the names associate to the names actually booking. So there are really subtle correlative events to where you can see that there's actual traction from the advertising that moves people over. And actually with Airbnb, as of like May 2022, they changed their search algorithm and made it harder for people to be discoverable. Actually, our property wasn't even on
it wasn't
the search.
showing up in the search results.
And so it became imperative that we had separate traffic that was coming to it. Bob got really dark. It's like a large cloud loomed over, and Bob learned about Airbnb shutting down people's listings. It was crazy. But they're adjusting and reshaping those things. But as I ran an SEO firm for a long time, and I know about search algorithms and how they usually operate with web search. And inside Airbnb or any of the other listing booking platforms, they're always using some sort of search algorithm to help boost it up. And any bit of traffic to it, any bit of interest in it, any bit of that does help kind of manipulate it to show more people your listing. So it's kind of like this gamification thing.
Seems like they change. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No,
these algorithms, it's like you get things like pretty much figured out, and then they're like, just kidding, we're changing our algorithm. So that's
because people learn how to manipulate it and how to get around things and how to use it to what their benefits are.
If someone's listening to this or watching this, they have a short-term rental, they're like, this sounds awesome, I want this. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to betterthanawesome.com. That's my website. They can find my contact information there, or submit a contact form, fill out. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the things. I'm pretty active in Facebook with a lot of short-term rental groups. I started a group called Short-Term Rental Marketing Advice, powered by Better Than Awesome. And I found that other groups that I was in didn't like me sharing how to do advertising, and not necessarily like, they thought I was all promoting my services. But I mean, in a sense I am, but in another sense, I'm really interested in people figuring out how to do this stuff so that way they too can benefit and not stress out. Because I've talked to dozens of hosts who are basically like, they're exhausted, they're anxious. One of my favorite clients, like my first client I took on to start doing ads for her short-term rental, and she was like freaking out. She had a hard time. She's like, I don't know anything about this. I'm not getting bookings. I'm not getting anything. She's got a big mortgage. She's a neighbor of ours in Crystal Beach. Yeah. So it's like, we have a property. She's got a property. We're both out-of-state investors. And she and I started working together. And when I checked in with her a week later, she's like, well, I don't really know if it's like the ads or it's just summertime, but like I'm getting bookings and things are happening really well.
That's fantastic.
I don't know, it feels pretty good.
What a great story to share.
I was like, it makes me laugh because she's saying, I don't know if it's the ads or just summertime, because it was summertime when we started the ads, and she was freaking out and she didn't have any kind of bookings. Yeah. And now she's getting enough, and people are liking her page, they're adding to the list. She feels really good about it. She's like, I love it. I'm going to keep it going. I'm like, well, I'm changing the ads now. They're going to be different, and I make them better, so they're going to get more and more. It's like it's funny
cool.
It's all cyclical.
with client, whenever things are going good, it's always the house or the weather. But when they're going bad, guess it's your fault, right? It's your guys' fault.
Right?
When you're not getting bookings, you know.
But that's how it's
Oh, it
supposed to
couldn't be.
work. Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't notice it if it's working. If
I
it's not
mean,
working, you notice it.
What I would say is that we were already in some of the groups, and a lot of people were freaking out that
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I don't have bookings. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
How am I going to get more bookings? And Mike was really trying to like share information because this had worked for us by this point. We knew that it was a reasonable way to increase bookings and to increase traffic to your listing.
Yeah.
So Mike was trying to share information, and
I've been banned from a few groups.
That's awesome. You know you're doing something right when you're getting kicked
I
out.
know.
yeah,
Facebook.
exactly. So
And that was
it's been
actually
great. It's
what-
been a wild ride.
That was what prompted me to write a book and get it out there and establish some credibility with the environment. I've been advertising for like, I don't know, 14 years in different ways online. And ultimately, when it came to this kind of stuff, I was like, this is so easy for me to talk to people about. I've been terrified about being on camera or anything like that beforehand. I've been so like, I don't even want to do this. But I've worked with some of the highest level companies doing advertising and successful campaigns across the board. And I've been able to do things that have worked on those giant scales for even short-term rentals. And I think right now I'm charging people like $300 a month to run their ads. And it's like, it takes me like 5 hours to build their ads and set it up. And I think it's like a reasonable rate. Costs like one cleaning cost a month to do marketing with me. So that's how I'm kind of like setting it up.
And it is part of your expenses
Yeah.
for running your business. So think
Yeah.
like write-off as opposed to, you know.
And it has been really helpful. And the people that I've walked through on how to do their own ads, I have had some people start and stop them and didn't want to like continue them because they're like nervous and didn't have enough time to go into it. But I'm like, hey, just give it 10 days. Just give it 10 days, spend $100, see what happens. If you don't like it, obviously I'm not like forcing people to do advertising, and it's tricky. You can get your things banned if you don't follow the guidelines, and you know, could run into a risk with your ad account and your Facebook page, but there's a lot of opportunities for people to get around that. And I'm always available to answer questions. I'm trying to be accessible in the community, especially because we're hosts ourselves and we feel the pain and know what it is like to fear not having bookings come through. So like, you know, again, don't worry, the bookings will come. Our ads are running right now. I'm only on day 2 of our ad run currently. I've already had like 100 clicks on it. So it's like, it's okay.
We'll share all your info as well in the comments and the links below and all that.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be
Well,
great.
you guys, thanks for coming on the show. Love having you as always. Many more to come. On the break, we were brainstorming so many topics to talk about on short-term.
I love it.
Mike's got a book coming out too soon, or it's out, right? The book.
Patricia's book is coming out soon. My book is out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, we're authors in this family now.
That's amazing. You guys, you're going to be on Oprah someday, and then maybe I can come. Oh, wait, are you on Oprah already?
No.
That'd be cool though.
You might be on Oprah sometime. Like if you made it to Oprah, is that still a thing? Or we're old.
I think that's a thing, maybe.
We just dated ourselves. Like,
I don't
you
know.
make it.
Oprah still has a show.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
She got a magazine.
Yeah,
Just
we'll be
dated
featured
myself.
in her magazine.
I used to watch her show.
I think everybody did,
Yeah, I'm pretty
right?
sure
I know.
Yeah, we all.
And you get an elephant, you get a rhino, and you get a. Wasn't there a show where she just gave away a bunch of cool stuff?
Yes, you get a car.
And you get a car. And you get short-term rental marketing, and you get investment advice.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of experts to listen to in the field. We're definitely not experts, but ultimately, we are very happy to share what we've learned.
Yeah. Hit us up.
Awesome, you guys. Well, hey, we love you. Thanks for coming on, and I hope to see you soon.
Thanks,
Likewise.
Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye.
Appreciate you.
Bye, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Bye, friends.